Welcome to Zambition, the channel on which we engage in dialogue with leaders from across sectors and generations. Greetings and welcome to Zambition. My name is Martin Kalungubanda, your host on this channel. This episode has two main goals. The first one is to celebrate the first anniversary of this channel. It is 1 year ago that we launched this channel. The second goal is to launch the version 2 of Zambition. You will notice that the background to the channel has changed, but we will also try and bring in new elements to allow ourselves to think and feel our way to our Zambition together. On this episode, we have selected out of the 44 dialogues that we had in the first year, a few of them that give us a snapshot, that give us a sense of the key elements that Zambians see as important to the future we face. If you may recall, I introduced this channel as a channel on which we come together across boundaries, across age groups, across gender, culture, and tribe, to reflect together on the Zambia we want, to engage in reflective sharing, conversation on what the future should look like and what it would take for us to arrive or realize that future.
Mulei naya ama kofi bena balenwe na pona kofi mulei naya ama kofi bena balenwe na pona ko when me sepela muchenjele na matrix when me sepela muchenjele politics when me sepela tu chenjele na matrix when me sepela tu chenjele politics when me sepela muchenjele na matrix when me sepela muchenjele politics when me sepela tu chenjele na matrix when me sepela tu chenjele politics.
I think I reached a point where I was ready to sacrifice all that I have just to ensure that we liberate our country from what I would call recklessness.
We now have a situation whereby a country that was debt-free, literally debt-free in 2011, we are now going back to the 1991 levels in terms of a debt per capita. Okay? So basically, we are looking at the last 10 years have been wasted years. Government, when it is run properly, resources are properly managed for the benefit of everybody. Only then can we uplift everybody else. We have seen that in the case of China, for example. They have done that.
This country cannot continue to have 50% of its people living below, the poverty bottom line or surviving on $1. Less than $1 a day. It's not possible. So how do we do that? So AfriSeed, as a business, we are trying to solve that poverty issue. And we are doing it in a small way with other stakeholders. Thankfully, we have a few global partners who've partnered with us as a company to be able to reach the farmers and most of the rural communities in ensuring at least people have food on the table, not only just maize, but also other foods like protein-rich foods, which can also improve the nutrition of the children.
We're now a community of over 18 million people. And sometimes when we look at the statistics, we identify some of the challenges that we have on the ground. And my ambition for Zambia is to get to a point where we're able to pull everyone along and have a minimum level of capability and ability to feed families, to grow sufficiently economically, and to have a community that serves amongst the various Zambian people, so that as a community, we get better every day.
If you get to a place where the color of my political regalia, my tribe, or who I know is the only thing I need to get a contract to build a road, then you have overpriced contracts. You have low quality work, and you kill innovation that we need. You remember we had jets. I don't know whether we have jets anymore. I think it was called junior engineers, technicians, and scientists.
Yes.
Yes. We had jets fairs where kids would design these things, and it spurred us on as a country. You know, that's how come I know we don't want to have the hangover of our socialist past, but I remember drinking Tarino. I don't know whether you remember.
I do.
I remember taking Tip Top. They may not have been the best drinks, but they were ours. And
Locally made.
Locally made. We had pineapple canned in Mwinilunga. Maybe the business model was not the best, but the idea was good. We had blankets being made in Zambia. We don't have any blankets being made now. We had bicycles assembled here. We even had Livingstone Motor Assembly. We were making batteries in Mansa. So the point is, we were developing science and technology that are the spur of economic growth. You can't have that you can't have economic growth without increasing education, increasing your research and development. And those will be done through meritocracy. So for me, you do that through having an honest and fight against corruption, and also introducing a meritocracy. Everything else we have.
There is a total disconnect or imbalance between the development in our country and the natural resources that God has endowed this nation with. And I'm a strong believer that using the resources, I should even include the natural and human resources, properly placed, this Zambia can be far much better. My village can be better. People don't have to drink water from the same pool with animals. And that is what hurts me, because we have the resources. You can't say there is no money here. We even can pick gold in Mwinilunga. We can literally pick gold. What has come out of the picked gold today? Zero. We can go and buy a fire tender over $350,000 at 1 million. This is how irresponsible we have been. With a responsible government, surely, Martin, should we remain with these roads? Should we still have children sitting on logs in a mud belt, classroom? Do we really still need, like I have said, to have no medicine in hospital? Do we?
If we can afford a 4-lane road in Lusaka, we should be able to afford a clinic in Shangombo. We should be able to afford a simple basic school in Chilubi Island. So then we can lift the living standards of our people, at least to an acceptable standard. We may not build roads everywhere, but let's build roads where it matters. We may not build 3-4 story schools everywhere,
but let's give at least a child an access to a standard school where they can go find a teacher. It starts with education. It starts with educating as many young people as possible. If we educate as many people as possible, if we expend our resources in empowering our people, we will have our people pursuing opportunities, pursuing careers, businesses that could add meaning to our country. It is difficult for government to get billions of dollars or kwachas of taxes from the few people that have the opportunities now, the people that are working, the people that are doing businesses. But if we can broaden the tax base by empowering as many young people as possible, even if they were collecting one kwacha from each one of us, they would make so much money. So it starts from there. It starts from giving power to the people that we've taken power from.
Right now, Zambia is in that space and movement of how do we make the financial sector a more giving sector, a bigger platform for us to be able to deliver on what needs to be delivered to our people. And so for me, I get very excited about what you can do with financial intermediaries. But leave financial intermediaries on their own. They will do what is in their best interest and keeps their clients, and they'll carry on. And so will most of us. But I think that financial intermediaries properly motivated and guided and conversed with can become very, very powerful engines of change, agents of change and engines of growth in any economy.
Look at the Grameen model of banking. It took someone to understand that the unbankable can be bankable if they are organized in a particular way. Shouldn't the Bankers Association of Zambia, in the way you mentioned yourself, be involved in more innovative rather than traditional ways of allowing everyone who is economically active to access finance?
Yeah, thanks, Martin. I think you referred to the Grameen model, which basically relies on trusted networks. Remember how it works. People come together, probably they're in a market, you're all traders, you guarantee each other, so that in cases there's non-performance, the whole group comes together, and then so that's what I'm talking about as well. And there is no better way than managing it via vehicles like cooperatives, for instance. But to the extent that we've made progress, I think you would have seen that credit has really expanded, especially in the last 5 years, to the private sector. And most of it, apart from just handling large corporates and government institutions, we are beginning to see inroads in terms of value chains. So for instance, on the copper belt, you are dealing with a mine. The mine has miners. They have canteens, just as an example. You've got people who are producing food to supply to the mine so that the miners are fed and things like that. So we've started seeing value chain financing at the moment. Zambia breweries, they've got various people who supply them with different things, just as an example. The cement industry, has got value chains. And I think we're beginning to see banks going into that space because then you can look at, the parent industry and the players and downstream. And I think that's where the innovation is coming from. But, you and I are also concerned not just about medium-sized businesses, but even the smaller ones. Absolutely. And I think that's where we can make the biggest difference. And remember, this country has youthful people, who are desperate to touch something. They've got the energy. It's just that the finance is a letdown. And I think that's where, things like, getting organized via cooperatives, associations become so key.
Wherever you are and whoever you are, not all of us have political power, but we all have political responsibility to make this country a better place. And we can do that. It doesn't matter where you are and who you are. We can all do that.
That's a beautiful line. We may not all have political power, but we all have political responsibility. Vamlenga, I was old enough to remember how your father was on several occasions violently attacked, imprisoned on trumped up charges for holding different political views. From how you come across and how often you smile and laugh, you seem to have forgiven all those who treated your father, our father, mother, and the rest of the family in a horrible way. If you have forgiven them, what has allowed you to forgive and live a life that, to my appearance, other people's appearance, seems to be free of bitterness? And what can our politics today learn from the past?
Okay, yeah, and everything you say is true. And my family has not had an easy path. It has not been an easy path being part of this particular family. Yeah, we have suffered, tragedies and stigma and all sorts of things. But I think one thing that we were brought up to believe, one is bitterness is a very heavy load. It's a very heavy load to carry, and there's actually no need to carry it. It's too much work. It's too much effort to remain bitter and carry bitterness all your life. But also, in the same way that my family has been steeped in politics and we have seen all sides of politics, it has taught us one thing, and that is that politics are politics, and then there's life. Then there's life. And politics, the whole thing that keeps politics going is what you believe and what position you are. And beliefs and positions change. And today I'll be your opponent. Tomorrow I'll be your friend. This is politics. My mother, we moved back to Chinsali in 1971, 72, when my father came out of prison. And, after all this stuff, it literally, when people pass through Chinsali, they'd pass through, my mother's place. This is like long after my father has died. It kind of became a little kind of ritual for every literary politician to pass through my mother's house. And, whenever I was there and my mother was receiving these politicians, they would come and say, oh, I'm from, whatever party, I'm from this party, and I'm from that party. And she'd tell them, you know what, I don't even really care what party you come from, not because, I'm not interested, but next year when you come here, you'll probably be the other party, So she said, you know what? I've received so many people here who come now. I'm MMD, then they come now they're UPND, then they come now they're whatever. She said, you know what? All I can tell you is that there is no permanent enemy or friend in politics. And every time they came there, she told them, the only thing I can advise you in politics is that treat everyone as a friend. Treat everyone well, whether they're on the opposite side or they're on your side.
Yeah.
Treat everyone well, because tomorrow you will need each other. Yeah. So that was like a really big lesson. But I also saw it unfolding, in the days when my family were really struggling and we didn't really have we didn't even have a house to stay in.
Yeah.
In 1971, when my father was arrested, when we had nowhere to go, when we had no roof over our heads.
Yeah.
The person who stepped forward was Harry Mwanga Nkumbula, who was from the opposition. He moved his own sister out of his house in Livala and moved us into that house because we needed shelter.
Wow.
But he was opposition. So for me, I've seen too many big lessons of forgiveness, of people reaching out, even when they should have been maybe bitter with my father. My father literally engineered the breakup of the ANC, yeah, of that. But it was Harry Mwanga Nkombula who offered us a house when we had no shelter. And I've seen that happen so many times, people who were really nasty to my father, who ended up needing the help of my father, and my father helping them, despite the fact that they injured him. So it's been a real life lesson. I've seen it, I've been taught it, but I think experience, as they say, is the best teacher. And I saw it for myself, and I've lived it. So bitterness is a waste of energy.
Yeah.
And forgiveness is not easy. It's hard work, but it's a work that you must do because it frees you. You become a much freer person. That's why I can laugh.
Yeah.
Because I'm free. I don't have to forgive anyone. They are forgiven.
But let me turn to you, my Lord Bishop. You are the president of UNIP. In a way, you have stepped into the shoes of Dr. Kenneth David Kaunda. Do these shoes, my Lord Bishop, feel even bigger now that Dr. Kaunda has passed on? And especially when you see how the country, Africa, and the world are responding to his death. How will this stature of KK, as we fondly refer to him, shape your leadership?
Thank you very much, Martin. Yes, our dear president was a colossal figure within the country, and of course, as we are witnessing and hearing on the world stage. He is in the same dimensions as the former president of South Africa, Mandela. He's on the same stage as Mahatma Gandhi was in context of India. A great figure, absolutely. And of course, what we're realizing is in terms of his shoes, they were big shoes, but they were big shoes when he was alive. But now, of course, the light is being drawn to how he transcended Zambia, Africa, the world, in terms of his leadership as a man of principles, conscience, and conviction. And so, of course, having been elected as the president of UNIP, what greater example can one have? Stepping into those shoes is very humbling. It's very humbling, and at the same time, a blessing. It is a blessing in the sense that this is what one must live up to and seek to emulate the greatness of the man, which was, in my view, the shoes were the shoes of the fisherman. And what do I mean by that? These were the shoes of Christ. There's a book written in the shoes of the fisherman about St. Peter. And he was a deeply spiritual man, as we all know. He was a child of a reverend. His father was a Scottish missionary minister in Uruguay. And so God was always the focus of his life. And in that context, in terms of the bigness of the man, it was the ideals. He saw his role as one of a child of God, out to fulfill God's calling upon our lives to love God with all our heart and to love our neighbors as ourselves and to honor the humanity which God created in his image. And so in all his work, in all his doings, in all that he is as a politician, as a father, and as an artist, in all the many facets that described him, those are the shoes of a great man and which we must emulate. So yes, it's very humbling. How does it shape my leadership? It's absolutely about humility, humility, that these shoes are not just ordinary shoes, and they're not shoes that one can easily walk in, but with the grace of God, the leading of the Holy Spirit, one can seek to live up to his faith and his ideals. And one prays that one would be able to do that.
The shoes of the fisherman. And Mrs. Alumis.
Yes.
Through Dr. Kaunda, I am of the view that we are also celebrating other men and women of his generation. In reference to the character and commitment to public service of those people who were in KK's generation, some Zambians have said, and I picked this on social media, they don't make them like that anymore. What do you think shaped the character of the men and women who led us to independence and the first 27 years of our being a free nation?
Well, you know, having worked with Dr. Kaunda, I came across the former leaders, those he worked with, you know, the Grey Zulus, the Mashekes, Mrs. Kankasa, Mary Fulano, you know, and I learned a lot from these people and all the others. Now, what struck me is the selflessness of these people. They were happy with the little that they had. And they didn't look to benefit from the state or to be comfortable. And they asked very little, you know. They were happy, like, you know, the late Grey Zulu would come and would sit with Mary Fulano, with General Masheke and what, and you know, would be sitting lunchtime and would be having groundnuts and maize for lunch. And they were very happy. And they would be talking about the state, what they did, and what they think, you know, the sad moments and the happy moments. They tell you moments where they went without anything. But you see, they had the focus. They had the vision. And that led them. The vision was that we must be independent. Our people, we deserve more than this, what these white colonialists were giving them.
President Mwanawasa met President Kaunda way back before anybody even thought that President Mwanawasa would become a president. When Kenneth Kaunda, the president, appointed him as Solicitor General, the stint was short, but it remains part of history that President Mwanawasa worked under President Kaunda at one point. Then coming to President Mwanawasa deciding to restate the stature of President Kaunda. As you know, when you're a president, you don't work alone. Of course, there were people he must have consulted, his aides, his ministers, and also it was not reflecting well as a nation that the founding president of our country was not receiving the respect and attention that he deserved. So somebody who was in President Mwanawasa's position had a responsibility and duty to do something. And in 2003, there was a special investor ceremony, specifically just for Dr. Kaunda. We know that investor ceremonies do take place in this country every year, but this one was special. It was attended by a lot of dignitaries, South Africa was represented by a minister. President Mugabe came, was there, represented Zimbabwe. President Nyoma then was president of Namibia. He was present, and several dignitaries attended that investor ceremony, which gave the recognition of President Kaunda as the founding father of our nation. And that was the beginning of everything that has followed to date up to his death. He also ensured that President Kaunda left the rented house, which was done by a citizen, and put him in a government residential house in Lusaka. And all the things that goes with the retirement of a president were put in place. But way before that, Mrs. Zalumis will remember that when President Kaunda was facing court charges, President Mwanawasa was actually part of the legal team from the private sector. And recently I came across a letter which President Mwanawasa was writing to Mrs. Zalumis, discussing the issues of legal fees which had been blown out of proportion and how it must be handled. So one day I'll be able to share with you that file. I just found it this week because when President Kaunda died, we were just now saying, where are the pieces? Where are the pictures? Let's put them together and see where we are coming from and where we are. So to sum it all, for President Mwanawasa to do what he did, President Mwanawasa believed that being a president was a tour of duty and not royalty. And therefore that tour of duty gave him the responsibility to do the right thing as a leader. And having worked under President Kaunda, I believe he learned a lot of things. So he drew a lot of strength because President Mwanawasa believed that when you are in leadership, you must always have an older person behind you. Whether that person is speaking or is just looking after your back, it is very important. And for me, I've taken that as part of a life learning journey. Doesn't matter where you are. You could be attending a wedding, you are the guest of honor, you are attending a funeral, you are the one making decisions. Look out for somebody older than you who should look after your back. So that when you're about to tumble, that older person will be able to say, young lady, young man, not this, do this, let's go this way. It's a silent voice. You may not see it physically, because these are things which are done behind the screens. And what creates, what comes out after all is said and done, is because someone has invested in such kind of people like Dr. Kaunda.
Dr. Mbikusi-Taliwanka, what is your highest aspiration for our country? What is your Zambition?
It is my deepest wish, not only for Zambia, but for the whole of Africa, that a new generation will be born, which will be free from being afraid of re-examining our history, maybe undressing some of our heroes, maybe changing our visions, which we have been, the narrative that has been taught to us. In other words, a generation that will be prepared to be really radical and resolved to re-decolonize. Because what happens in October 24 for Zambia has already been called decolonization.
Yes.
But it was not decolonization enough. That's where we are now. So you need to re-decolonize it, and you have to be prepared to have the audacity, the courage to go back to the drawing boards with no sacred cows of personalities, no sacred cows of interest, no sacred cows of present comforts.
Alongside the Zambition, this year we are thinking of creating a similar program, but on a continental level, that which will express Africa's ambition. While indeed my principal focus and the focus of those that have walked this journey with us so far is Zambia, we are also part of the continent of Africa, and we would like to explore what the ambition of Africa is for many people. And looking forward to being with you on this journey in 2022.